People are tired of being a prisoner to their own personality. For years, many people have been operating from a constructed mask, just an outdated operating system of the brain, built on a shaky foundation of fear, drama, and distrust. You might feel lost. Some people feel stuck in a cycle of addiction or anxiety. But here is the truth: addiction is not a character flaw, it's a normal response to an abnormal situation. It's an attempt to solve a deep life problem imposed normally by trauma of some kind. But today we're going to talk about the paradigm shift that we need that takes us out of the story of our past and into the future of the construction and recovery of your sacred self. We've got personality on one side and spirituality on the other. Addictive personality disorder, spiritual recovery. So one side is labeled personality, it's many different names, and the other side, spirituality, represented with light, freedom, expansiveness. Most of us spend the first half of our lives building a personality to survive. We develop what we call ego insurgents. It's like ego defenses. And these come in 10 different forms. And we can go through the controller, the perfectionist is another one, the victim. And these masks of personality are here to protect us from a stressful world. These masks were meant to be shields, actually. But eventually they become 20-ton weights that throttle and choke us, just like addiction does. So spirituality, on the other hand, isn't about dogma. It's about the unveiling of your real, true, authentic self. While your personality lives in the basement of survival mind, which is the limbic system, your spirit resides in the penthouse of the prefrontal cortex of the brain, where all executive functioning happens. Not addiction, executive functioning, where we can actually do the things we want to do that serve us. So the shift from one side to the other, neurobiologically speaking, happens when you realize you are not a puppet of your past, but the conscious author of your destiny. And it's important in recovery. You've got to realize that. So, how do we start? How do we get an image of ourselves shifting from this, addicted, closed, shadowed, vulnerable victim of a person who wants to return and recover a sense of gratitude, self love, belonging, connectedness in this world, developing certainty for themselves, presence and resilience, those sorts of things. We liken it to a skyscraper of consciousness. Now, this ESC, or energetic scale of consciousness, as we call it, is how we measure people's recovery. We measure their transformation to the point. So the scale is 0 to 1,000, 0 being the basement where you're closed, um, vulnerable, in severe suffering and pain. You can't see anything around you and you're in the depths of despair. And then, of course, you go up 200, 300, 400, and so on to 1,000, where you get to the penthouse eventually and you can see clearly now. You get to see what's around you. You get to be free and conscious and aware, where, of course, addiction has nothing to do with awareness. So the skyscraper of consciousness is something that people really, really resonate with in recovery. They get to see exactly where they were at the worst of it. They get to plot themselves out literally within 95%, usually, to 99% of exactly where they are now. And it brings a sense of comfort. And it takes the variables of, oh, crap, where am I? To, I'm right here. And you can see with that trust in a process that's tangible. You can see where you're going, and you move out of things like force towards authentic power. You move from being reactive up towards thriving, and so on. So the going up on these floors in a 100-story skyscraper is such a beautiful way of envisioning the invisible chains of learned helplessness. Those beliefs that we are powerless because of past pain. In the survival zone of our skyscraper here, which is about 100 to 200 joules, we scan every experience for fear. We're sitting there waiting for tigers to jump out of the bush at us. At least that's what the brain thinks. So in recovery, then, we must cross the abyss from the known to the unknown. Now, the known, if we do what we did last month, last year, we're addicted to our thinking more than our drinking. So you have to be willing to ask, who am I without the stories I'm believing in my brain of myself, of others, of life, of God, etc.? Are the stories I'm believing even true? So that questioning, which comes from Einstein's process, is where we begin. And then that takes us up as we start to question why. We naturally open up and we start seeing and realizing what's not working for us, but more importantly, what will work for us. And then we drift over there. So we dissolve and integrate this old self, this addicted self, and recover the virtues of our, what we call our sacred self. So we use these 10 masks of addiction to get us back to our authentic self. We let go of the controller first to recover a sense of self-love. In the second paradigm, we let go of the victim masks that we wear. That's a big one with addiction. And recover a sense of resilience at the same time. Resilience is innate to everybody. We all have it as human beings. We have to have it. We start realizing we are creative agents through this process, not helpless pawns. And there's only 10 paradigms that we go through, pretty much like the 12 steps, sure. But we shift from personality to spirituality. So indeed, there is a spiritual solution. This method of addiction recovery is a scientific revolution of the self. You are accessing your internal agency, your internal pharmacy, which is neurochemical, using self-regulation, for example, which slows down your brainwaves. It's brain-heart coherence that happens. It's a natural physiological flow into ease from frightened states. And eventually, doing enough work, you arrive at a state of consciousness, expanded, pure consciousness, where fear flees because it has nothing to attach to. When you remove the mask, fear has nothing to attach to. You're no longer reacting to a 500-piece puzzle that you thought you were. You now see a 1,000,000-piece puzzle of reality. So you open, expand your consciousness, and that's recovery. You become a creative, contemplative, choosing love over fear at every turn, rather than self-harm. You finally realize that nothing you truly are was ever lost. It was only veiled by your frightened personality. So there's a sense of freedom with that. Your recovery journey from survival to arrival starts with one conscious choice. Stop searching for external elixirs and arrive at your sacred self. Go within, not without, and ask yourself before every decision, does this nourish my soul? DTNMS. Does this nourish my soul as you bring choice back into your life? Addiction is choiceless. and the work is waiting for every one of us. All you have to do is show up for yourself, develop awareness, cultivate acceptance, formulate a plan of new action. Awareness, acceptance, and action is the 10-step paradigm process for addiction treatment.